Hi everyone. We are from. Oh, might want to go back one. We are from the shit show Chateau, the official worst flat in Dunedin. And about exactly this time last year, we signed this flat with the aim of turning it into a low-carbon home, or as we like to call it, from P-Lab to penthouse. But we want to rewind and go back a little bit to when we were first years, or freshers. So you've just moved out of home and you can pretty much do whatever you want, which for us was a lot of socializing. But when it comes to flatting, you just don't have a clue, really. First year flatting, it's kind of like you've just moved out of your cushy, well-insulated, warm hall of residence, and in Dunedin, you choose your flats during summer. So by the time winter rolls around and you can't really feel your extremities, it's a little too late because you're locked into a 12-month lease. Now, we're kind of veteran flatters, so we've identified 3 of the main issues with flatting in Dunedin.
So the first big issue, health. Living in cold, damp Dunedin flats is really bad for your health. This mold you see here was everywhere behind the walls that we opened up. And mold like this is having an effect in New Zealand. New Zealand has one of the highest rates of respiratory disorder in the OECD countries. The second big problem we've faced. Dunedin flats are anything but energy efficient. Heating an uninsulated flat is like cranking the fireplace with all the windows open. And as Sean was talking about, we need to start looking at how we're using our resources and how we can decrease our carbon footprint. The third big problem that we face is power. Power's expensive. Students can barely pay for their flat, let alone a Dunedin winter's electricity bill. Living in these cold, crappy flats is one thing, but living in them and paying heaps is another.
So looking at these main issues, 2 of our flatmates, Tish and Leander, who are in the audience today, probably over a few beers as well, came up with this plan to work alongside our landlords to fix up the flats. So students provide the labour, landlords front up the financial costs, and together everyone wins. And thus was born the Chateau. Now, there were 2 things we were looking for when we signed this flat. It had to be uninsulated and it had to have no form of heating, which is pretty easy to find in Dunedin. And which is what we got, but we got a whole lot more as well. Like I said, we signed the official worst flat in Dunedin, and that is our outdoor grotty potty. And this place was bad. Like cold, mouldy, damp, dirty, lots of anatomical graffiti, splatters on the roof. Just, yeah, terrible. Garden full of rubbish, you name it, we had it. And we've heard every single euphemism under the sun, like it's a diamond in the rough or a DIY's dream come true, a bit of a doer-upperer.
So what have we done with this place? Well, we jumped straight in and we put roof and underfloor insulation in. We started draft proofing, so we found all the gaps around the doors and windows and filled those up. We cleared away the massively overgrown garden, let some light into the house, start to ventilate it. We put in a wood pallet burner to have some form of heating, though it did come in August. We started insulating. So we've finished 1 room of wall insulation. We cleaned away mold, we took away all the previous tenants' rubbish, we put a massive vegetable garden, all with the help of our friends who we lured in with beer and offerings of beer and parties. But with all the work that we've done, we've come across some pretty big challenges. So the first big challenge that we faced was the first room we opened up, which you can see in this picture here. It was molded all the way through, the wall had rotted completely through. And so we knew we didn't have the skill to tackle this one, so we tried to pass it on to the landlords, the builders to the landlords. But we tried to, that was the point. We came across the second big problem here, which was time. Chasing builders and trying to get the work done just took forever, especially when the landlord didn't help. That room is still like that to this day, 6 months later. Which brings me to the biggest problem we faced, or the biggest challenge, which was our landlord. Landlord, you'd think they want to look after their property, keep it well, keep it warm to maintain it, get it to last longer, but there was a complete lack of leadership, and we've had stops all along the way.
Which brings us to now. This is at Halloween, and just want to emphasize this project wouldn't have been possible without our flatmates and how awesome it was. So when we looked at trying to pass this project on to other people, we realized that it probably just wasn't feasible, which is now why we've kind of changed tact and gone for more of an advocacy role and trying to empower students to put the emphasis back on the homeowners themselves, trying to get a bit of leadership and responsibility from them. And we think this is a pretty fair call, considering, like, looking at the larger picture. This world is facing some pretty hectic issues and it can be pretty confronting. But if you start small and in your own home, we think that's a really great place to begin.
And there's plenty of really good examples for it. Up in Auckland, there's New Zealand's first zero-energy home, this place here. This place produces all the energy it needs, and it's looking to save up to $80,000 in power bills over the next 25 years. We want to see standout houses like this become the norm in New Zealand, because they should be. There's other great examples. Up in London, there's the Beddington Zero Energy Development. It's going to pop up on the screen. You can have a look at it. It's awesome. This is what New Zealand should be aiming for. This is a fantastic example of low-carbon living. And places like this is what we should be aiming for. All new houses in New Zealand should be built like this. And all existing houses should at least be insulated. And we can. We're Kiwis. We think big, and we make it happen. We all live in some form of a home, so we can all relate to this, and we all can get involved.
So speaking of all getting involved, if we had one starting point for all of you guys out there, it would probably be around insulation. The reason we say this is because it's out of sight, so it often gets forgotten, but can have pretty massive good changes for the property. And it benefits both you and the landlord. And if it then decreases your energy bill as a whole, it's benefiting everyone, which is kind of why we're here, right? Benefiting the greater New Zealand. And so that's what we're after, better homes for a better New Zealand, because you don't really want students to have to do your work.